the word conservation, what do you envision? Animals? The rainforest? People wearing Save the Whales t-shirts? Ultimately, you envision putting a fence around a group of animals and saying, don't touch these here. Don't live on this land. Don't hunt these animals. These are separate. You certainly don't envision that humans can benefit from a solution like that. See, for too long, conservation has been a movement focused on helping every species except humans. And because it is so animal-centric, local conservationists have had a hard time getting buy-in from policymakers, especially in developing countries. See, by no fault of apathy or indifference, governments and charities in developing countries simply can't always focus on endangered species when the humans of their countries are in just as grave of danger. They have bigger problems: poverty, malaria, hunger, and in that way it becomes a choice. Will you help the humans or will you help the animals? So what if I told you that there was a solution that can benefit both species? That there was a way to simultaneously improve the well-being of all of the animals on this planet? Does that even seem possible? When it comes to conservation, we need to start thinking differently. Conservation doesn't have to be a hands-off, animal-centric approach. In fact, if we put a benefit to humans at the forefront of any conservation plan, we can actually protect more animals. And I'm going to show you how that's possible with my favorite topic, economics. I believe economics can save the world. And I know that economic incentives can change the face of conservation completely. So we talked about why policymakers have a hard time getting buy-in from governments, right? They're interested in humans, not animals. But it doesn't help that a majority of these programs are very hands-off, meaning that they're focused on building reserves and banning hunting. A program like this doesn't give much back to a developing country. Besides the aesthetic and environmental benefits to protecting an endangered species, a method like this has no tangible benefit for a government. Read, animals don't make money. Animals don't produce goods. And on the other side of the coin, villagers are some of the worst offenders of international poaching laws. A species that the Western world considers a quintessential symbol of Africa is, to the person who lives next door, a dangerous nuisance to crop and danger to human safety. If you had to choose between your entire harvest for a year and the rhino barreling through it, wouldn't the choice be pretty simple? Sometimes these animals are even the villagers' best shot at dinner. So the problem we see is that nobody has a real incentive to protect these animals. Policymakers are more worried about humans, and villagers would just as soon have them eliminated. Sad, right? The good news is that there's an idea out there to change that. A big idea. It's being implemented and in a lot of places really working. It's called community-based natural resource management. And what that means is that an entire tract of land and all of the natural resources and animals on it are governed by local communities in a way that they become a profit-yielding investment that people want to protect. Now, you may be saying, wait, profit-yielding conservation? Now you know I'm an economist. This is where the economics kicks in. Here's an example from Zimbabwe. So in Zimbabwe, on the southern tip of Africa, there are a number of animals that for a long time suffered from high levels of illegal poaching. The government simply couldn't provide enough guards to stop the poaching, and the villagers, as I mentioned, weren't always helping. An NGO called Campfire Zimbabwe came in with a new and innovative conservation plan. First, they got the government to grant the ownership rights of large tracts of land to the nearest community in the form of districts. They also gave these communities the right to sell hunting permits and safari tours on this land. Campfire Zimbabwe then came in and taught the local people how to sustainably manage their new property. The community elected a council that would oversee the allocation of profits and also come up with a plan for how many hunting trips they could sell in a year. Hunting trips. See, by selling just a few hunting permits, maybe 3 elephants a year, a community can bring in enough revenue to not only distribute to individual families, but use to build fences, roads, and schools. And with that revenue, the community has an economic incentive to protect these animals. They're no longer a nuisance. They're a source of income. And to do so, they train young people in the community to be guards against poachers. This is their property. They don't want it taken. Meaning that not only is more income coming in, but new jobs and new ways of life. One of the surprising outcomes was just how committed these people became to protecting their animals. And in one district, a pair of over-enthusiastic young guards accidentally chased down and arrested a pair of hunters whom they thought were poaching crocodile eggs, only to find out that they had indeed purchased a permit from the council. So obviously this plan is working great for the communities and for the people, right? Bringing in income, creating jobs, but the win for the conservationists is that the animal populations in these districts are growing, flourishing under the watchful eye of their new community. By giving these animals an economic value and allowing people to make money off of them, the community had a reason to protect even more of them and allow their populations to grow. Seems great, right? And it isn't just in Zimbabwe that this is happening. Programs in Namibia, South Africa, Madagascar, and a number of other countries are all pioneering this new idea. Now, not all of the programs are perfect. By no means are they all successful. It's a fairly recent idea. My work focuses on what goes into a successful program and what components are necessary to create a sustainable and lasting program. Now, when I first learned about it, it seemed crazy, right? Protect an endangered species by giving someone the right to kill it? I mean, from day one, we're taught that we need to protect, preserve, and keep these animals out of harm's way. We all feel a sense of responsibility towards the environment, and we translate that into the idea that in order to save them, we need to sacrifice something. But the reality is that endangered species need an economic value in order to survive. And the good news is that that economic value can be used to better the lives of people in developing countries, people who really need it. So now that you've heard about an alternative conservation method, what can you do to share the idea? Well, challenge the people who cling to the idea that a hands-off, animal-centric approach is the only way to go. This is a relevant and very local debate. Recently, in Dallas, you may have heard of this, the hunting permit for a black rhino in Namibia was auctioned off for $350,000. It's in our backyard, and all of that money will go towards conservation efforts. First glance, right? Immediately the internet was flooded with people saying what a terrible idea this was and how unjust and hypocritical it would be. But when you look a little closer, when you think a little more differently, you learn that the rhino in question was old, non-breeding, male, and had been exhibiting aggressive behaviors, which had it targeted for removal anyway. And Namibia always does this. They always auction off 5 black rhinos. So now that you've learned to think differently about conservation, I challenge you to reconsider the ethics and benefits of a program like that. I also hope that you will look up the auction I'm talking about. I know there's another speaker coming, but Google it. Get the conversation going about how putting a benefit to humans at the forefront of any conservation plan and giving animals an economic value may be the best way to save them. Thank you.